Hey everybody, welcome back to Let Her Cook, brought to you by BSCN. I am Jackie Dutton, your hostess with the mostest, and today we are going to get into some prediction markets. We do a quick and dirty 30 minutes every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern, and on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, we do an actual cooking show where we just kind of talk pop culture, crypto, general kind of goings on and updates of the week, updates maybe on some predictions we've made on Mondays. And we usually make something kind of fun. So if you're looking for something, I think maybe a little bit on the healthier side this week, we will try, starting the new year off on a lighter foot, if you will, because we were getting into like the chicken pot pies and the not the waistline friendly things. But I think the holidays are over. Happy New Year. We are finally in 2026, approaching the year of the horse. And I think everybody's really excited to be done with 2025 and in this new year. But to start this new year off, I think we started it off with quite a bang, especially if you are Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. So obviously, the de facto leader of Venezuela was captured this weekend by U.S. Special Forces. And one of my favorite posts was that actually Will's coming out scene in Stranger Things took longer than it took the Special Forces troops to capture Nicolas Maduro. So way to go. Very glad to see that there were actually no American lives lost in that process. And Maduro, who is an illegitimate dictator, is being brought to justice in New York as we speak. And the people of Venezuela are celebrating in the streets. So regardless of how you feel about, I don't know, I've heard people say like, oh, Trump should have gone to Congress. Well, I don't think Trump needs to when it's not an actual leader of a country and he is a narco-terrorist. You don't get to be fucking Scarface in charge of a country with a shitload of oil while you starve your people and you stole an election and you just shouldn't be there. So congratulations to the people of Venezuela, and I hope New York doesn't fuck this up. But speaking of Stranger Things, we need to get to some Polymarket news because I think we consider the prediction markets to be a lot more fair and a lot more honest, if you will, than maybe the shitcoin space. But sometimes there are a few bets, if you will, on Polymarket that kind of lend itself to, was this rigged? So I expect that you have seen the end of Stranger Things at this point. And there were, for the last several weeks, there were a few bets going on about whether or not certain characters died in the season finale of Stranger Things. The highest bet that was in effect was whether or not 11 would die. So Millie Bobby Brown's character. And the issue there was that I saw several people, including somebody who created an account out of nowhere, like a brand new user, and they put $35,000 on Millie Bobby Brown's character to kick the bucket at the end of the show. Now, there's obviously cast, crew, editors, there's a bunch of people who would know the ending of this show. Insider trading is something that no one is a stranger to on these predictive markets. So it wouldn't be shocking if somebody who was in the know actually figured out what was going to happen. But here's the thing. A lot of these people bet that 11 would die, that her character does die. And this person, Bag Calls, on Twitter or X, said that they've obviously placed a bet that 11 does die. If you have seen the show, the way that it does end is that that character very clearly has an ending. And then at the very end, the kids are together and they have a scene where they discuss this potential Deus ex machina way of things happening to where 11 actually survives. But they don't actually, like, confirm or deny that, and then the creators of the show, the Duffer Brothers, they're not gonna come out and say whether or not this actually happened. But here's the problem. Polymarket's rules for this particular bet, and really the devil is in the details with all of these, is the rules stated that if the bet, if her death was left ambiguous, meaning that if they created some narrative where maybe it didn't actually happen, that it would resolve to a no, that she didn't die. Now, Netflix is never going to be one to nuke a franchise. We saw this with the ending of The Sopranos, and I think had James Gandolfini not died, they probably would have like brought something back. We have seen like Peaky Blinders, they've done a movie again. If something is popular enough, they will leave windows and doors open for them to go back and try and continue to financially milk that cow. So I am not surprised that the way they left it was very ambiguous. But as far as this bet is concerned, I do tend to side here with Bad Calls because his opinion is that 11 is seen as staying in the upside down as it closes when the bomb goes off. Mike is screaming and crying, Hopper screaming and crying, held back by military. The upside down literally explodes and disappears. Polly and 11 are left in it. So the ending does clearly show a death that she and her other friend that was in the lab with her, they do die. They do. I know these are huge spoilers, but it's been, get it together. It was a break. You've seen it. So anyway, I I do feel that in this particular case, Bad Calls is correct, that there was a true ending for her character on screen. And then this hypothesized, like, oh, well, we want to think that she made it. So here's the story and version of events of how this could happen. That's not actually what was shown. But again, apparently this counted enough as just an ambiguous death. The problem on Polymarket, and we saw this again with the will Zelensky wear a suit bet last year. And Zelensky did wear a suit. Let me look this up for you. Wear a suit. So he did. He wore this like kind of military style looking suit. But according to the Polymarket bettors, this wasn't enough. Apparently, it needed to be this kind of a suit. But on Polymarket, the way that the bet actually resolves is thanks to something called a UMA holder. And these UMA token holders have to agree on whether or not the outcome is one way or another. When you use these platforms, it is worth noting that you take an extra additional gamble on the UMA token holders believing, one way or another in the outcome that you hope for. It's not as simple as betting on a football game. Either the Giants or the Steelers or whatever are going to win. That's a much safer bet to make on these predictive market platforms than something like, will Zelensky wear a suit? Will 11 die in Stranger Things? When you have something that does not have a binary outcome, a yes or a no, a he said it or he didn't, he wore it or he did, like, you have to have a binary outcome in order to have a sure thing in terms of what the answer is. So I don't want to use the word rigged, because I think truly rigged is something where it's like fixed and somebody behind the scenes influences the outcome as well. But ultimately, you really take your money in your hands when you get involved in these bets where there could potentially be some ambiguous opening like this. So be very careful. The UMA token holders have been accused of always ruling on the side of favor of whatever their money was placed on. Again, there's no restrictions on who can go ahead and, gamble on something. So it's just worth noting that you need to be extra careful when you go ahead and do this. As always, gamble responsibly if you're going to do that, right? Okay, so we are gonna move on here to possibly some insider trading, uh, and I think it's hilarious that Baron Trump has been accused of insider trading on the military operation of Maduro. So, um, just the night before Maduro was captured, someone created a Polymarket account, again, clean account, and they spent $30,000 one day before the US captured Maduro, and they have now won $400,000 just 24 hours later. Clearly somebody knew clearly multiple people knew. I think the US really prided itself. I heard Trump speaking about the Maduro capture on the fact that there were no leaks. Well, clearly there was one. This is definitely one. But, I love the speculation that it was actually Barron. I doubt it was Barron, but, we may wanna keep an eye on this particular account here, and it says they've made 4 predictions. Here's the great thing about Polymarket, you can actually look this up. All of these bets, and they have won every single one so far, all of these bets have been about Venezuela. So I this is fantastic. I mean, good for you. Um, but it does look like they've placed let's see, is this the amount that they've wagered or won? Yeah, I this is great. It looks like 10 days ago they started betting, and then 6, 4, 3. So somebody knew this was coming, and I do know that Trump talked about how it was a mission that they had to get exactly right because the sky had to be completely dark, and he said for the last, like, 5 nights, they had been trying to do this. Well, that kinda lines up with someone knowing about this that this was gonna happen, so, mm, I don't know. Uh, yeah, that's crazy. Nobody wants to accuse anybody in the military of this happening, so it's funnier if it's Barron. But, here's somebody saying Barron was at Mar-a-Lago when this mission was planned. Um, I just think that it's hilarious that Barron's total silence on matters, like, pins him into a corner of being accused of shit like this. It's usually fairly innocuous, though. Alright, so the next bet I did wanna talk about here is, uh, something kind of fun. So SpaceX is reportedly going public, I think this year, and there is a big debate on what the ticker will be. I've seen a lot of people because it's Elon Musk and he thinks names are particularly funny. He named their largest rocket BFR, which just stands for big fucking rocket. And occasionally he can name something, very funny. So there was a huge debate about whether or not the ticker would be SEX, S-E-X, for a while. There's Mars, Space. I think Space is already a ticker, though, or SPCE already exists. But I think the correct answer here actually will be Star. There is so much within the SpaceX ecosystem that is named Star. There's Starbase, Starlink, Starship. So I think this probably makes more sense. It also ties in to, space things. So if you are interested in wagering a little money on what the SpaceX public ticker will be, I think, don't quote me on this. None of this is financial advice. We'll get to that disclaimer at the end. But honestly, Star makes the most sense out of all of this. So if I was a betting person, I would say Star. I wouldn't think that SPACs actually means anything. I think Star makes the most sense. I know that for a while, Elon Musk went around like registering when he initially started Tesla, the Model T, the Model E, the Model L, like he went along it to spell out Tesla. And I think there was one he couldn't get like copyright or whatever that is registration for. But otherwise, names are very important to him, and I think if he held the star ticker, I think that would actually wrap up very nicely with all of this. Um, but I don't think it will be sex. I also don't think that they would even allow that ticker on the stock market. So just go ahead and keep that in mind. Let's see here. What's up on the next docket? Okay. So we are going to talk about some Apple predictions here. There are several on Polymarket, and I know that usually Apple does not come out with their big keynote until about September, but I think the rumors start really flying earlier in the year and kind of in the spring. So the keynote in September usually details the software updates and what new features something like the iPhone will have, and they really get into like the details. But things start leaking early on, as we can see here. So, will Apple release a new product line before 2027? This is very interesting to me because Apple is already in, let's see, they have Apple TV for TV products, they have earbuds, watches, they have the Apple headset. They also have obviously the phone, the iPad, a computer, desktop, laptop, iPad. Um, I'm just like not sure at this point what's left. Is there, I mean, maybe the glasses, but I don't understand what. So the rules of this is that a new product line is defined as a category of products Apple has not previously sold rather than an iteration or an update of an existing product. Example of new product line would include Apple branded home robot or a gaming console, while a new iPhone, Mac, iPad, Apple Watch, or AirPods models would not qualify. Um, so this is one of the few bets that you could place where you are actually going to know about this one like well before the end of the year. So you're going to end up seeing this probably by like June and at the latest by September. It does look like someone knows something that maybe we don't. And it does look like yes. But again, I am just not sure at this point what else they could get into. So there were a few. Let's see. So this one is definitely a yes. Will Apple release the iPhone 18 in 2026? Obviously, they number their phones each year, and I think the only time that they come out and call it something like the iPhone X or the iPhone, whatever Roman numeral or letter or whatever, the only time they do that is when it's like a 10 or a 20 or some kind of like very big year. So I think this is a safe, this is a safe yes as well, that the next one will be the 18. This bet was kind of interesting. Will Apple release a foldable iPhone before 2027? I think so. This would not count, I don't think, for the new product bet. But if they actually a qualifying release of a foldable smartphone by Apple will count even if it is not explicitly branded as an iPhone. So, but it does need to be a phone according to these rules. It's not going to be like an iPad that you can like fold up or some kind of tablet. So, okay, here's the deal. I don't know if you know anyone with these foldable phones, but they're not really that popular. I don't understand why Apple would want to do this. I mean, I think they want to credit themselves as being like major innovators and the product leaders for a particular style. But at this point, it wouldn't be innovative because somebody has already done it. Two, they're not that popular. So I don't see why it would financially behoove them to go ahead and do this because they are not going to necessarily reinvent the wheel. And if we're being really honest, I don't know if they've had an amazing product since Steve Jobs. I said what I said. Sorry. And I say this as somebody who buys Apple products. Okay, I have a Mac, I have an iPhone. Like they own me. Okay, I get it. I have their product line. They're good. I'm just saying, is it like as revolutionary as when the iPhone came out every single time? No, and it hasn't been for a while. So, mm, that's just my 2 cents here. Another, fun, but also very ridiculous bet I wanted to talk about here. Will a 1 megaton meteor strike in 2026? Okay, this is kind of like the will Jesus Christ return this year kind of bet. I just want to know really quickly, what is your plan if this does resolve to a yes? Do you think money will matter at this point? We are all cooked, like worse than the dinosaurs. At this point, your prepper friend with tons of canned food will have like more value to his supply than your Polymarket bet, regardless of whether or not it paid out like 100,000 to 1. So the people who have voted yes on this, I'm just wondering what your plan is, and how do you think you would get the money? Because I actually think if this happens, like, Polymarket's done, they're probably not paying you out. Will you even have internet access to get a hold of this? I don't understand what your plan is here. This is a complete weird fucked scenario, and you're gonna log in last moments on Earth and be like, "I won!" Like, this would be the worst I'm right the most unsatisfactory, like, vindication on Earth, literally. So, yeah, I the people betting on these, just what? We have let's see, sometimes you can actually catch these while the percentage is high and just write it on down to like nothing and collect a little money on your bet. So here's this one has a 5% chance of this happening. Again, this market will resolve to a yes if a natural meteoroid explodes in Earth's atmosphere with a total impact energy greater than or equal to 100 kilotons of TNT equivalent between January 1st and December 31st. And the object must be classified as a natural meteoroid. Okay. And just to be very clear, events involving artificial objects or re-entry vehicles do not qualify. So if they bring the USS or the International Space Station down, the ISS, that doesn't count. Again, I don't think that would even like have an impact. Most of it would burn up on its re-entry. So yeah, so here's one of the comments here. I mean, if it happens, money is basically going to be useless. If I had a few thousand, I'd put it on no and get a guaranteed return. And then somebody's rebuttal is that the Tsar bomb was 50 millitons. I don't know what MT is. Maybe he meant kilotons. Yeah, here we are. It would be devastating, but not world ending. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Just to, let's see, kind of wrap this up here. Here's a natural disaster bet. So again, these bets, I would see this and I would immediately think, oh yeah, you have, even last year right away, they had the Pacific Palisades wildfire. I wouldn't say that was a natural disaster. I would say that was a Governor Newsom disaster and a Mayor Bass disaster, but otherwise it was still a disaster. And it was of natural causes of a fire and wind. But when you look at these bets, you have to read the rules, and the devil is really in the details. So this market will resolve to a yes if any of the following conditions are met during this year. A Category 5 hurricane makes landfall in the US. This one is, in my opinion, the most likely out of what happens on the rest of this list. A major meteor strike, again, we talked about this, a major volcano erupts, and then they have the unit of like how bad the eruption needs to be, and then an 8.5 earthquake occurs. I am from California and I have lived through some pretty big earthquakes, and I got to tell you, at 8.5, that would really rock your fucking world. So that would be really bad. I think I don't even think the Northridge quake was that big, and that took down like freeway overpasses and all kinds of stuff. So these would be absolutely horrible. But I think As far as, hurricanes are concerned, that is the more likely option here. But even then, I don't think we had a major one this past year, and Category 5 is very rare. Category 5 is like Katrina. Um, I think Ivan was also a Category 5, but again, for them to make landfall as a Cat 5, that is very, very rare. That doesn't happen very often. I think even the one in North Carolina was like a 4. So, in my opinion, the 50-50 odds are actually very high. I think it's a lot more likely that this is a no. But again, we will just have to see. Here we go, another one, a 10.0 earthquake or above before the end of the year. I doubt this. Um, Here's a bunch of lovely comments. Will the US confirm that aliens exist is better? Personally, I kind of agree. Um, let's see. We're just looking here at some weather ones. Here's another one that has, low odds, but if you're looking to pick up just, scrape like 1% of your bet and just start to kind of compound your interest here, will a hurricane form by May 31st? Hurricane season is typically not until the middle of the summertime in the northern hemisphere, and then much later. Hurricane Katrina hit, I think, the first week of September or the last week of August. So it would be very, very rare to see this happen by the end of May. It's also been generally cooler this year, and I don't think that we are going to see this happen. So in my opinion, this would be a no. Here's some bets that are a little more realistic in terms of the 51% and the weather. Will any Category 4 hurricane make landfall in the US? I think now we're talking here. But again, you're probably not going to see your money on something like this until about September time, maybe October at the latest. So, yep, we'll see. We'll see with all this. All right. So we I do want to talk about this, and I can't tell if this is the ultimate crypto top signal or not. Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of Chase, he went on national TV and he said that crypto is better than the current financial system, that the experiment phase is over, and he is now pro crypto. Okay, a year and a half ago, this guy called Satoshi Satashi, and he also swore that Satoshi was going to just like magically come alive, reveal who he was, and basically rug Bitcoin. If you know anything about the Satoshi wallet, it has supposedly been there, the access has been burned to it, but it is the largest holder of Bitcoin overall. And it would absolutely, if they liquidated, I think it would like liquidate all of Bitcoin. It would completely screw everything up. So just a year and a half ago, he was a conspiracy theorist and believing that Bitcoin was worthless, that it was being controlled by somebody who was just waiting for their big final moment to finally rug all of Bitcoin. And now he is saying it's great. I also saw Bank of America saying that everybody should start diversifying into Bitcoin. Now, also, Walmart will be accepting Bitcoin at the checkout because the people of Walmart hold a ton of crypto. I don't think so, but this doesn't shock me that Walmart is willing to take any money that they can get for this. Are these top signals, or are these just gleans of mass adoption? What do you guys think? You'll have to let me know in the comments. Do you think this is actually a good thing, or do we think that this is maybe that these are kind of those echoes that we look back and we're like, oh yeah, this was actually a red flag? Sometimes I think we look back and we realize that things were not as positive as we wanted them to be. So overall, good luck. I really hope the crypto market can sustain this, but Bitcoin's actually been doing pretty well. So I am encouraged overall. Also, Venezuela held a shitload of Bitcoin, and now I think that belongs to the US. So hopefully we'll give that back to the Venezuelan people or something. I'm not quite sure what we're gonna do with that, but also the Venezuela deal, it also affects crypto as much as it affects oil and silver and a bunch of other stuff. So we will have to stay tuned to see how all that shakes out. All right. As usual, nothing I say here is financial advice. Everything is just my own opinion. Please, if you do log on to an account on Polymarket or any other predictive market platform, always do your own research and make sure you try and mitigate your risk as best as possible and never risk more than you are willing to lose. I am Jackie Dutton. This is Let Her Cook live on BSCN. We will see you guys back on Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, live for another episode of Let Her Cook. And check back for clips, funny little bits of entertainment, and maybe a fun review later this week. I will see you guys later. Bye.